Hello guys, and welcome to the part 2 of the responsive smart home website using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Now in the previous video, that is the part 1, we finished with the desktop version of the website, and in this video we are going to proceed to finish the whole project. Okay, so first of all, we are going to make our website responsive on mobile phones and then on tablets as well, and then we'll proceed to create a contact page which is going to be fully functional, and that means people can actually message us through the form on this website, and I'm going to show you how to do everything in this video. And then finally, after creating our contact form, we will proceed to make everything on the website functional, especially on the frequently asked questions section. In this section, we are going to make sure we can click to view the answers to these questions that we have here in the frequently asked questions section. All right, so let me quickly walk you through what we did in the previous video. That is the part 1. Let me quickly walk you through what we did. We have our navbar here, we have our socials here, we have this is the main area, or this is the hero section. We have our title, our subtitle, our hero image. We have our call to action buttons here. We have our about section. We have this client section right here. As you can see, we have the testimonial section with this cool hover effect. We have this frequently asked questions section. We have the download app section. We have this subscribe section, and finally we have the footer section as well. All right, so this is what we covered in the previous video. That is the part 1, and in this video we are going to make sure to finish the whole project, and we have a lot to do, so let's get started. Let me put this side by side so that we see everything that goes on. And this, we are going to start with the media queries, as I said, so this should be very easy to do. This should be the size of a tablet, a big tablet, I guess. All right, I want to have everything on the screen, okay, so that you see everything live. Let me leave a comment here. Media queries. This is going to be for the tablets. We're going to have 2 media queries. Okay, we are going to have that of the tablets, and then after that we are going to have a different media query for phones as well, or smaller screens. So right here I'm going to do at media screen and max width 1024 pixels. That is going to be the size for an iPad Pro, so that should be the size of a big tablet. We want to have these styles. So first of all, I'm going to change the width of our container. Okay, remember we had a variable for the width of our container for tablets, right? So we are going to use this variable for that. That is 90%. So the general container class here is going to have a width of the container with tablets. Now let's move on to change the size for our H1s to H3s. Okay, so the H1 here is going to be 4.2. So the H2 is going to be let's do font size of 2 rem, and then the H3 here is going to have a font size of 1.9 rem. And then the lead, remember some paragraphs have a class of lead as well, so we are going to give those a width of 72%, and then a margin bottom of 3 rem. Okay, so those are going, actually, you know what, let me I don't know, I think, okay, so right here is the breakpoint. Okay, so notice how the font size for our H1 here changes. So right here is our breakpoint right here. All right, so this is what we are styling. So from the lead, let's proceed, and then so these are the general classes. Okay, these are the general styles that we are having before we proceed. We even proceed to the navbar. We are going to structure this the same way we did for the desktop version. Okay, so Here on this section, every section is going to have a padding bottom of the variable bottom section padding for mobile. So let me quickly show you that. That is a variable we have here. Okay. So the padding bottom is going to be 8 rem. All right. So that is what we are doing here. Now let's proceed to our navbar. Okay. Our navbar is going to change. We are going to style our navbar differently. It's going to be a drop down. So let's proceed to style our navbar. Let me leave a comment here. Remember, our navbar is inside the tag of nav, right? And I'm going to give it a background of color primary. Go to the nav container. Okay, so for that, I'm going to position it relative. And then let me give it a width of 100 viewport width. Okay, that is going to be for the nav container. Now let's move on to the logo. So nav logo, let's give it a margin left of 2 rem. Let's give it a margin left of 2 rem, and then this is going to be positioned relative. Now let me proceed to the most important one in the nav bar, which is going to be the nav items, which are going to be the home, about, testimonials, and all that. So these nav items are going to be positioned fixed, and they are going to be 6 rems from the top. Okay, and then from the right they are going to be 0. Now let me give them a background, which is going to be a white background. Let's do color white. Let's give it a height of maximum content, a width of 18 rem. Let's see what we have. All right, so that is it. Looking weird, but we are going to fix that. Let's give it a box shadow. So -2 rem on the x-axis, 2 rem on the y-axis, 3 rem for the blur, and then an RGBA. Let's do 0.2 here. Okay, so there is some box shadow there. Oh, this should be black. Okay, so 000 and then 0.2 for the alpha. Now this is actually already displayed flex. Okay, so here I'm going to change the flex direction to column. Give it a gap of 0, that is removing all the gap, and then the z index of 3. I want that to be on top of everything. So that is for our nav items. Now let's go inside and then change the items inside of it. So nav items LIs. Okay, let's give that a width of 100%, a height of 6 rem. Now let's move on to the links inside of it, which are white. That is why we are not seeing anything right now. It's white text on a white background. That is why we are not seeing anything. So let's go inside and then grab all the links inside of the LIs. Let's change the color to color black. A width, let's give them a width of 100%. We are going to give them a height of 6 rem, which is 100% of the parent. And then display block, padding left of 3 rem, and here I'm going to display them flex. Okay, so that I can align items to the center. All right, so that is our links inside of the nav items. Now I want to have some hover effects here. So on hover, I want to change the background to color primary, and then the color to color white. Okay, so on hover we are going to get that. Now that is too sharp, so I'm going to give that a transition of all 400 milliseconds is. Then we should have a smooth transition with the hover. Okay, we don't need them here, so we are going to display them none. Now let me actually target the logo. Okay, so nav logo, I'm going to position that relative. It's going to be 0 from the left, and then I'm going to translate 0. And for anyone who did not watch the part 1, this may be confusing, especially with the variables that we are using here, but If you don't understand, please check out the part 1 to follow along. All right, now let's move on to the buttons. Okay, so remember we had some buttons inside. We had some buttons, okay, and those are going to be our nav menu button and then the close button. Okay, so we have, actually this should be ID. Okay, this should be ID. So that is what we are going to use in the JavaScript. So these are the buttons. This one is the hamburger button or the hamburger icon, and then this is the close icon. Okay, so we are going to need them here on the tablet. So right here, let's give that some style. So for those two buttons, let's display them in line block. Let's give them a margin right of 1.4 rem, a background transparent. Let's give them a color of color white, and then let's make them clickable. Okay, let's make them look clickable. So cursor here is going to be pointer, and we have our buttons. We have our hamburger button and then the close button. Now the close button is not going to be needed right away, so here let me target the close. I think I gave that an ID of close btn, so here I'm going to display none, and our icon is too small, so here I'm going to change the font size to 2.4 rem. Good. Now that is all for our nav section for the tablets. Let's move on to this hero section. Okay, the header section here, but this is distracting us, so let me go up and then display this none. For now we are going to use JavaScript to actually toggle this, so I'm going to display this none for now. Okay, we are going to come back to that in the JavaScript. The header section was inside a header tag, so let's grab that and then let's give that a padding bottom of the bottom section padding mobile. That is a variable. The background here is going to be the primary color. Okay, so color primary, that is going to be the background. So we are going to totally remove the image. Okay, the image background. Now let's target the title. Okay, the h1 there, so header title, and then I'm going to give that a margin bottom of 1.5 rem. I don't need the image on tablets. Okay, I don't want the image to be on tablets, so here I'm going to remove the image. Okay, so header image, I'm going to display that none. All right, so we have the title, the subtitle, and then the call to action. Now let's proceed and then target the CTA. Okay, the call to action buttons here, and for that I'm going to give them a margin top of 3 rem. Now let's position these social media buttons well. So here I'm going to get the header socials, and then from the top is going to be 24%. Let's give them a gap. Remember we displayed them flex already, so I'm going to give them a gap of 1 rem here, and then change the font size to 1 rem as well. Okay, so those are our socials, and then lastly I don't want this to be here. Okay, and we give that a class of header decorator 2, so let me grab that and then display none. All right, so that is all for our header section. Now let's quickly move on to our about section. Okay, let's push this down and then give this more styling. So the about, that is an ID, we give that an ID about. Now I'm going to push that down, so let's give it a margin top of 7 rem here. Let me actually do 7 rem. Okay, it is too much. And then about article. Okay, so these have a class of about article, so here I'm going to change the margin to 0 auto, and this is actually all for the about section. Now let's move on to the next section, which is going to be this client section. And right away, I'm just going to grab the client's container here and then change the gap here to 1 rem. Okay, the gap is too much. Now that is all for the client section. Let's move on to the testimonials section. Just going to copy this comment and then change it to testimonials. And here I'm just going to get the testimonials container. Let me scroll down so that we see what is going on. And this container is actually displayed grid already. So here I'm just going to change the grid template columns to 1 FR. Okay, I want them to take the full width. And then here, let me change the gap to 1 rem. So now let's move on to the next section. Actually, this frequently asked section really don't have anything to change. So let's move on to this section, which is the download app section. Let me just copy this, paste, and then change this to download app. And remember, this section has an ID of download app. So that is what I'm going to grab. And then I'm going to text align everything to the center. I'm going to text align to the center. And then I'm going to grab the call to action. So download app, CTA. I'm going to change the flex direction here to column. Decrease the gap to 1 rem. And then the margin is going to be 0 auto. Okay, good. So that is for this section right here. Now let's move on to this subscribe section. Paste and then change this to subscribe. And that has an ID of subscribe as well. But I'm going to grab the subscribe container directly and then change the flex direction there to column. I'm going to change the height to auto. The gap here is going to be 5 rem. The padding is going to be 3 rem. The font size 1.2 rem. Now let's grab the paragraph. Okay, let me actually just copy this, paste, and then grab the P, which is the paragraph tag. I'm going to change the width of that to 94%. All right, so that is for this subscribe button. And lastly, let's do something to this footer section. Okay, let's tie that a little bit. So footer, let me grab the footer container directly. So footer container is displayed grid. So here I'm going to change the grid templates columns to 1 FR, 1 FR. Okay, so we have this. Let me actually squeeze this a little bit. All right, and that is all for the styles for our tablets. Okay, that is all for our tablets. Now let's quickly move on to the media queries for mobile phones or smaller screens. So right here, I'm going to leave a comment here at media screen and max width. I'm going to do 600 pixels for this. So anything below 600 pixels, we want to have this style. Okay, so let me actually just see the breakpoint. So here I'm going to change the background, the body of the background of the body. Let me make that red just so we can see the breakpoint. All right, so right here is the breakpoint. Okay, so let me expand this so that you can see everything well. All right, so on mobile, first I'm going to change the font size for everything. Okay, so the font size here for the HTML is actually going to be 14 pixels. Okay, it is 16 pixels by default, and that is what we've been working with. But on mobile, I want to have that set to 14 pixels. Now let's move on, and then our H1 here is going to have a font size of 3.2 rem. Our H2 is going to have a font size of 1.8 rem. Our H3 here is going to have a font size of 1.4 rem. Okay, our lead, our paragraphs with the class of lead is going to have a width of the container with mobile or container with phone. Actually, that is what I named it. And this is a variable, okay? That is a width of, I think, 94% right here. So that is going to be the width of any paragraph with a class of lead. All right, let's quickly move on to our navbar, which we displayed none here. So let me change that display. Now our navbar here is going to have, let me target the logo directly. Okay, so our logo here, I'm going to give that a margin left of 1 rem. Okay, let's get our nav items and then the links inside of it. Let's justify content to be centered, and then let's give them a padding of 0. Now let's move on to the nav buttons. So nav button, margin right of 0.7 rem. Let me actually open this with a responsive render, okay, so that you can see live what is happening. And we have some overflow here, but don't worry about that. Now we are done with navbar, so I'm going to uncomment that out. That is the display. I'm going to remove that. I'm going to display none. Okay, so let's proceed with our header. And here I'm going to grab the title, that is the H1 header title. I'm going to give that a padding top of 11 rem. Okay, and then let's move on and then grab the call to action buttons. So here I'm going to change the flex direction to column. Okay, align items to the center and give them a gap of 1 rem. I don't need the socials here, so I'm going to remove them. So display none. There's going to be the about. Let me grab the about article and then change the grid templates columns here to 1FR. I'm going to give that a margin top of 5 rem. Text align to the center, and then let me give that a gap of 0. Okay, all right, so we have this here. I'm going to grab the about article and child here. I'm going to grab that, and then the image. So here I'm going to change the grid row to 1. All right, now let's move on to the client section. So let me copy this comment, and I'm going to grab the client's container, change the grid templates columns to 1FR. The gap here is going to be 8 pixels. Okay, 8 pixels. That is for our client section. I'm going to copy the comments again and then proceed to the testimonials section. The testimonial section is going to be very simple. Testimonial. I'm going to grab each testimonial and then give them a padding. I'm going to change the padding. The padding here is too large on mobile, so I'm going to reduce that to 1.4 rem. Now let's move on to the footer section, which is actually causing the overflow. Let's quickly style that. So the footer section, I'm going to grab the footer container directly and change the grid templates columns to 1FR. And I want them to be in the middle, so I'm going to text align to the center and then give them a gap of 2 rem. So we have this. Now I'm going to target the footer one. Come on. So the width here is going to be container width, mobile or phone. And then give that a width of the variable. So container width mobile or phone rather. And then the margin is going to be 0, auto, and then 3 rem. Okay. Actually here, I'm going to display none for the subscribe. I'm going to display that to be none. And lastly, the socials. Okay, the footer socials. The footer socials here, I'm going to justify content to the center. All right, so this is how our website looks on mobile. Okay, let me actually show you here. So this is how it looks on mobile. Okay, everything looks great. Now let's move on to add the functionalities for the website. Okay, using JavaScript, we should be able to click this and then show our nav items. And then here in the frequently asked questions section, we should be able to toggle the answers. All right, so let's go to index HTML and then link our JavaScript file. So here I'm going to say scripts, and then the source is going to be main.js. Okay, so that is our JavaScript. I'm going to go into the file, and here I'm just going to write an alert so that I can make sure this file is actually linked, and it is. So I'm going to remove that. And what I'm going to do is to grab this. Okay, the first thing to do is to grab this. Let me actually get out of this. I'm first going to grab this icon. I'm going to grab that of the close icon or the close button as well, and then the nav items. Okay, so those are the three things I'm going to grab. So the first one I'm going to grab is obviously this button right here, which is the menu. I'm going to call that menu btn, and we give that an ID of menu btn. Okay, right here we give that an ID of menu btn. We are going to grab the close as well, and then this nav items as well. Okay, so those are the three things we are grabbing. Let me duplicate this twice. This is going to be close btn, and the ID is close btn. Let's grab the, let me call this menu. Okay, and that is a class of nav items. First, we want to be able to open the nav menu. That is what we want to do. So I'm going to add an event listener on the menu btn, where is going to be a click event, and we are going to run this anonymous function. Okay, so on click we want to show the, we want to get the menu items here, and then change the display of that. We want to change the display to, and we are going to display block. Okay, so let's try that. Let's click, and then we have it. Okay, but notice now we can't close it. Okay, we can't close it. So what I want to do when we click on this is to actually remove this button and then replace it with a close button. Okay, so this menu button, menu btn, on click I want to change the style display to none. I want to remove it and then replace it with the close btn. So the close btn is going to have a style display of inline block. Notice our hamburger icon is replaced with this, and then our nav items is there. All right, so that is for showing our nav items. Now we want to be able to close it. Okay, we want to be able to close this, so we are going to put an event listener on the close btn, and then here when we click on this close button we want to hide the nav items. Okay, so we are going to display that none, and then the menu button here is going to be visible again. So the menu button here, we are going to display that inline block, and we are going to hide our close button. Okay, so this is going to be displayed none, and I hope this makes sense. Let's try that. So we click our close button is now visible, and then we can click the close button to close it. Okay, all right, now let's move on to the frequently asked questions toggle. Okay, we should be able to toggle this to actually show the answers just like we have here. Let's grab all these frequently asked questions. Okay, so here, let me leave a comment. So I'm going to grab all the frequently asked questions. I'm going to do query selector all, and then grab all the FAQ. Okay, remember we gave each of these a class of FAQ. Let me show you that. All right, so each of these articles has a class of FAQ, as you can see here, right? Now the one with the class of open actually has the answers show. Okay, so this class is what we are going to toggle, and we styled this class in the previous video. Inside the CSS, we styled this class. Okay, so here that class is what we are going to toggle. So right here, I'm going to run a for each loop. So right here, I'm going to grab all the frequently asked questions and then run a for each loop. I'm going to add an event listener on them. Okay, so we want to be able to click on them and then show the answers. So right here, I'm going to add an event listener, which is going to be a click event, and we are going to run this anonymous function. Anyone that we click, I want to show the answer, which is just by toggling the class open. So I'm going to say frequently asked question class list dot toggle, and I'm going to toggle the open class, and that works. Okay, but when the answers are visible, okay, when the answer is visible, I want this icon to change to the minus icon. Okay, so here, let me leave a comment and then grab the icon inside of each of these. Okay, so let me call that icon, and then inside the frequently asked question, I'm going to grab the icon inside of it. Okay, so, and I gave that a class of frequently asked question icon. Okay, so we are going to grab that, and actually we are grabbing the icon itself. Okay, so we are grabbing the icon here. All right, so here I'm going to say if the icon class name is equal to, then that means we want to change that to minus, right? So the icon now, the class name is going to change to minus. And if it is already open, that means if the icon is minus, then that means this question is this answer is already open, right? So for that, I'm just going to change the icon back to plus. This should be icon. Okay, so we have our toggle, our frequently asked questions toggle. Now the last thing I want to do in this JavaScript file is to have, let me actually refresh and then show you. Notice in the completed project we have the background here for the navbar transparent, but on scroll we are going to have this the blue background with this thin white border as well, okay, on the bottom. So that is what we are going to do next. So let me go to the JavaScript file again. I'm going to select my navbar, and here we are going to toggle a class. Okay, so the class list I'm going to toggle is going to be called window scroll. Okay, and when we scroll on the y-axis, then I want to have this style. Okay, the style that I'm going to put inside the CSS. I want to have this style inside this class. Okay, so let me go to the CSS, and here under this nav I'm going to have that class. So the background is going to be primary, the border bottom is going to be 1 pixel solid color white, and the box shadow is going to be 0 on the x-axis, 1 rem on the y-axis, 1 rem for the blur, and it's going to be the color primary variant. Okay, now I have to remove this. All right, so let me refresh, and we have the results we want. All right, actually I don't want any of these to be open by default. Okay, I don't want any of these to be open by default. So here in the frequently asked questions, I'm going to remove this. Okay, and by doing so I have to change this icon to plus. Good. Now we are done with everything on the home page. Okay, we are done with everything on the home page. So let's quickly move on to the contact page, which is going to be a whole separate page. So let me go into my contact HTML, and here I'm actually going to copy from the navbar to the doc type. Okay, so let me copy this and then paste it inside our contact HTML. Let me go down and then copy from the footer down. Okay, so I'm going to copy from the footer to the end of the HTML tag, and I'm going to paste that here as well. All right, so I don't want to waste a lot of time on this contact form. Okay, so I'm going to copy the markup for the form and paste that in. All right, so this is the markup for the contact form. Okay, so we have some details. This is the actual form. These are the fields for the actual form. Here are just some details of our business. So here we have our details inside our aside tag. So we have this aside tag, and we have these details here, which is this, and then we have our form. Okay, we have our contacts form right here. So for the form, these are the various fields that we have. We have name, so we have a type of text, a name of name, which is the name of the person, and then we have placeholder, and this is required. Okay, so we are implementing some front-end validation here. We have email, we have phone number, we have message, which is actually a text area, and then we have a button, a submit button right here. Okay, so this is the form that we have. Okay, so I created a new file called contact CSS. Okay, so we are going to have some styles for the contact page alone. So let me copy those styles and then paste it inside this. Let's go into our contact HTML and make sure our contact CSS is linked. Contact CSS. Okay, so we have this. Let me quickly walk you through the CSS. So this is the CSS file. Okay, and this whole source code is going to be, the source code for the project is going to be on my Patreon, so you can get that and then change this to anything you want. Now the most important thing is for people to actually submit message or to send us message through this form. Okay, And for us to do that, we are going to use FormSpree. And we are not using any backend language, so this is a service for us to actually receive messages from our form. You are going to click get started, but I have an account, so I'm just going to sign in a new account. Here I'm going to create a new form, okay, and I'm using this email. Okay, this is my dummy email for tutorials. So the form name is going to be Smart Home, and then the project is going to be Smart Home website. Okay, and I'm going to create form. After creating your account, you'll be sent a verification email for you to verify that the email you entered actually belongs to you. Okay, so after verifying the email, you come back to this URL and then copy this link. Okay, you are going to place this inside the form tag. So here the action for this form is going to be this URL that you just copied. So you copy that and then you paste it in here. Okay, and here you have to make sure the method is post. So let's copy and then paste that here as well. Okay, so we only need the action and then the method. The action is going to be the URL, and then the method, you just make it post. Okay, so you save, come back to your form, let's refresh, and let's test this out. So the name, I'm just going to enter a random name here. I'm going to enter a random email as well. This is going to be my phone number, and let me actually copy, and this is the email that I'm using. Okay, this is the email that I'm using, but I'm just going to copy some random text for the message, and let's submit. All right, so the form is sent. Okay, our message is sent. Let me come back to my email and refresh, and we have it. Okay, we have our message. So this is the name we entered, this is the email I entered, this is the phone number, and this is the message I copied from the page. Okay, so this here is the name that we gave to the field. Okay, so the name here is this, just to make sure we know the field in which the message is actually coming from. So notice the email field also has a name of email address, and the phone also has a name of phone number. Okay, so that is how you implement form submission on your website. And one thing, if you want to prevent spam, okay, if you want to prevent spam, then you have to check, you have to come to the settings and then check this Google reCAPTCHA. Okay, so let's actually, by checking it, it's actually activated. So you can just come back, refresh, and then let's try this again. So this is going to be my name this time. It's going to be my email, that's my phone number, and this is going to be the message. Okay, let's submit, and we have to pass this before the message actually submits. Traffic. All right, let's come back, and we have a new message. Okay, we have a new message. So this the name I entered, this is the email, the phone number, and the message. Okay, so that is how you implement form submission on your website. All right, so that is all for this tutorial, guys. Our website is looking great. Let's check the responsiveness for the contact form or the contact page. Everything is looking great. Let me see the responsiveness on iPad or tablets. It's looking great as well. All right, that is all for this tutorial, guys. As usual, Please subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.